She only wanted to surprise her husband with lunch. A simple gesture, grilled chicken wraps, 2 homemade cookies, and a folded note with a smiley face. But when Savannah Blake pushed open the door to her husband's private law office, what she saw inside froze her in place. Caleb Bishop, the man she had sacrificed for, the man she had built her life around, wasn't alone. And the woman in his arms wasn't just anyone, it was her sister. That single moment didn't just shatter a marriage. It would rip open hidden betrayals, ignite a scandal that would spread across Mariela Heights, and expose the cracks in one of the city's most powerful law firms. Sometimes the deepest cuts don't come from strangers. They come from the people who share your blood. This is the story of how a wife's innocent surprise turned into her cruelest nightmare, and how one act of betrayal in a glittering city office would change 3 lives forever. But before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from today, because the next chapter of this story is one you don't want to miss. The door to Caleb Bishop's private law office stood slightly ajar, just enough for sunlight to slice through and land like a spotlight across the slick marble floor. Savannah Blake noticed the glint as she stood there, frozen, her fingers clenched tightly around the handle of the lunch bag she had packed that morning. Inside the bag were small tokens of her love, a grilled chicken Caesar wrap, 2 homemade cookies still soft at the center, and a folded note with a smiley face on the outside that read, "You've got this." She hadn't planned to be early. In fact, she had expected to be stuck for another hour at the design consultation she'd scheduled at the Mariela City Bank, 2 blocks down the street. But the meeting had ended sooner than she thought, and on a whim she decided to surprise Caleb. She imagined his handsome but weary face lighting up at the gesture, his voice softening as he pulled her into a grateful hug, his stress melting away as he bit into the wrap she knew was his favorite. Savannah thought, naively, that this would remind him of who she was. The woman who had walked beside him through law school when he had nothing but a second-hand suit and a dream. The woman who had stayed awake through the night, editing his internship applications while he practiced mock trials. The woman who had endured every sleepless pitch meeting, every panic attack, every moment of despair, believing that his success would one day be their shared crown. But the voices drifting out of the office made her stop cold. They weren't business voices. They weren't the sharp, fast exchanges of legal arguments or the crisp cadence of client meetings. These voices were soft, low, dangerously intimate, like a pot left simmering until it bubbled over. Her heart pounded. She could make out his voice, Caleb's, roughened with the tone he used when he wasn't trying to impress anyone. And then her breath caught the second voice. Feminine. Sultry. Familiar. Too familiar. Naomi. Her younger sister. Savannah's knees weakened. Her fingers tightened on the bag until the paper wrinkled beneath her nails. The 2 voices inside rose and fell in teasing rhythms, each syllable like a dagger puncturing her chest. No, this can't be real. Her pulse raced so fast she thought she might faint. Her mind tried to conjure excuses. Maybe Naomi had come to discuss something innocent. Maybe she had stopped by coincidentally. Maybe Caleb was only being kind. But the laughter, the sighs, the warmth dripping from their tones, there was nothing innocent about it. Savannah's body moved before her mind could stop it. She pushed the door gently, and it opened wider with a soft creak. The sunlight spilled further into the room, painting both of them in a glow that made the scene impossible to misinterpret. Caleb's expensive suit jacket was draped over the edge of his polished mahogany desk. His tie hung loosely around his neck. Naomi sat perched on the edge of his chair, her hand against his chest, lips curved in a smile Savannah recognized too well. For a heartbeat, time stopped. The city outside roared with the noise of honking cars, clinking glasses from the rooftop lounge across the street, and the faint hum of jazz drifting from a cafe downstairs. Yet in this office, the world shrank into a silent bubble where betrayal burned hotter than fire. The lunch bag slipped slightly from Savannah's hand, the cookies shifting inside. Her note, her hopeful little note, suddenly felt like a cruel joke. Neither Caleb nor Naomi had noticed her yet. They were lost in each other, whispering words Savannah's ears refused to process. Her vision blurred with hot tears, but her body locked in place, refusing to move forward or back. Her lips parted. The air in her lungs thickened like smoke. Every nerve in her body screamed. She stood there, at the threshold of a betrayal that would shatter her life forever. And then Caleb lifted his head. His eyes met hers. For a fraction of a second, Caleb froze. His lips parted, his body stiffened, and his confident lawyer's posture, the one that had commanded courtrooms and boardrooms across Mariela Heights, crumbled like dust in the face of Savannah's gaze. Naomi, realizing too late, spun around in the chair. Her eyes widened, her glossed lips trembling as though she could summon an excuse fast enough to cover what Savannah had already seen. But there was no excuse. The image was etched in Savannah's mind like stained glass shattered underfoot. Every detail burned into her memory. The way Caleb's shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, the way Naomi's manicured hand lingered against his chest, the way her own husband's eyes darted between guilt and arrogance as though deciding which mask to wear. The lunch bag slipped from Savannah's hand. It fell soundlessly onto the marble floor, the cookies breaking inside, crumbs scattering like the remnants of her hope. Her folded note, a note written with laughter that morning, with innocence and trust, slid halfway out of the bag, the smiley face mocking her as it lay face up on the ground. Her throat clenched. The world spun. "Savannah," Caleb began, his voice hoarse, carrying a strange blend of apology and irritation, as if her presence had spoiled a private indulgence. Naomi stood quickly, her designer heels clicking against the polished floor. "Savvy, it's not what you think." But Savannah wasn't listening. Her heart was beating too loudly in her ears, drowning out their voices. The entire office, the mahogany bookshelves lined with Caleb's carefully curated law journals, the crystal decanter of bourbon he only poured for important clients, the sleek leather couch where she had once napped waiting for him after late-night cases, all of it blurred. The betrayal screamed louder than anything. She wanted to yell, to demand answers, to unleash the storm that had erupted inside her chest. But instead, her voice betrayed her with silence. She stood frozen, her lips trembling, her tears threatening but refusing to fall. She remembered the nights she had ironed Caleb's shirts before his interviews, pressing out wrinkles while whispering prayers for his future. She remembered skipping meals to save money, so he could afford the tuition that had nearly crushed them. She remembered Naomi, her little sister, sitting at her kitchen counter laughing with her, promising to always have her back. And here they were, together, breaking her heart in the broad daylight of Mariela Heights. Naomi took a step forward, her hands raised as though approaching a wounded animal. "Savannah, please, just listen to me." Savannah's eyes snapped to hers. For the first time in years, Naomi saw something in her sister's gaze that frightened her. Not hurt, not fragility, but the beginnings of a quiet, simmering rage. Caleb, ever the lawyer, straightened his tie as if reassembling his mask. "Savannah," he said with authority, "this isn't the place for drama. Let's—" But Savannah turned on her heel before he could finish. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't demand. She simply walked out, the sound of her heels striking against the marble hallway echoing through the prestigious Bishop and Cole law firm like a funeral march. Every associate and secretary who glimpsed her knew something had broken, though none could name it. Outside, the city air was sharp with exhaust and perfume, the pulse of Mariela Heights beating around her in horns, laughter, and the distant chime of a cathedral bell. She stumbled toward her car, her chest tightening with every step. Her world, carefully built, fiercely defended, and endlessly nurtured, had cracked open in one careless moment. And Savannah knew nothing would ever be the same again. The city lights blurred as Savannah drove through Mariela Heights, her vision streaked with unshed tears. The wide boulevards, lined with high-end boutiques and glittering billboards, mocked her with their beauty. Each neon glow seemed to whisper, "You built him. You made this life possible. And now it belongs to someone else." She turned down an avenue lined with jacaranda trees, their purple blossoms drifting onto the hoods of luxury cars. The steering wheel felt heavy in her hands, her knuckles pale as she gripped it tighter. She wanted to scream, to hit something, to rewind time back to the morning when she had been nothing but a loving wife carrying a lunch bag filled with hope. Instead, memories unspooled in her mind, pulling her backward into the years she had given to Caleb Bishop. She saw herself at 23, working late nights as a hotel receptionist in Mariela Heights' five-star Grand Paloma. She had worn cheap heels that pinched her toes and a second-hand blazer that smelled faintly of mothballs. She had stood at the lobby desk, smiling at wealthy guests, while secretly scribbling edits on Caleb's law essays during quiet hours. She remembered Caleb then, a broke, exhausted law student who lived in a cramped apartment with peeling paint. His only suit had been purchased from a thrift store. Savannah had stitched the lining herself when it began to tear. They had shared bowls of instant noodles, splitting an egg between them on the best nights. When Caleb had panic attacks before exams, Savannah would sit cross-legged on the floor, holding his hands and whispering, "You've got this, Caleb. You're brilliant. Just breathe." She had believed it even when he hadn't. She had sold her grandmother's gold bracelet, the only heirloom she owned, to cover part of his bar exam registration fee. She had smiled through the pain, telling herself it was a small sacrifice for a bigger future. And when he had finally passed, when his name was printed on the Mariela City Bar list, Savannah had been the one who screamed with joy, who bought champagne on credit, who kissed him until her lips were raw. She had told everyone, "He's going to change this city." And he had. Caleb Bishop, once the poor boy with trembling hands, had risen to become one of the most respected young lawyers in Mariela Heights. He moved easily among oil tycoons, politicians, and CEOs. His office overlooked the skyline. His suits were tailored in Milan. His face appeared in glossy city magazines under the headline, "The Bishop Who Rules the Courtroom." But none of those magazines had shown the truth. That behind him stood Savannah, the woman who had fed him, clothed him, and believed in him when no one else had. Savannah's grip on the steering wheel loosened as the weight of her devotion pressed down on her. And then her mind shifted to Naomi. She remembered Naomi at 17, a shy girl who used to sneak into Savannah's dorm just to borrow clothes and laugh about boys. Savannah had paid Naomi's college application fees when their parents couldn't afford them. She had housed Naomi during summer breaks, fed her, introduced her proudly as my baby sister. And now, Naomi had repaid that love with betrayal. Savannah's chest ached as if a stone had been lodged inside her ribs. The betrayal wasn't just her husband's. It was her sister's too. Two of the people she had loved most in the world had carved a wound so deep it threatened to swallow her whole. The luxury cars passed her by. Pedestrians in designer coats hurried across the crosswalks. Somewhere above her, a rooftop lounge played soft Afro-jazz, couples clinking champagne glasses under the starlight. Mariela Heights moved on, glittering and glamorous, while Savannah sat in her car at a red light, drowning silently in heartbreak. Her devotion had built Caleb's kingdom. And now, standing at the gates of that kingdom, she realized she was the outsider. Naomi Blake had always lived in her sister's shadow. From childhood in their modest neighborhood on the edges of Mariela Heights, people would point and say, "Look at Savannah, so smart, so kind, so beautiful." Savannah's laugh seemed to light up every room. Savannah was the one teachers adored, the one neighbors trusted, the one boys followed with eyes that lingered. Naomi, 2 years younger, was simply Savannah's sister. She grew up watching Savannah win awards while she clapped politely. She wore Savannah's hand-me-down dresses to school dances while other girls bought new gowns. She felt invisible at family gatherings, where relatives compared her timidness to Savannah's easy charm. By the time they reached adulthood, Savannah had not only outshined her in school, but had also secured Caleb Bishop, a man Naomi had secretly admired from the beginning. She had watched the way he leaned toward Savannah, how his eyes softened when he listened to her. Naomi had once imagined what it would be like to be chosen with that intensity, to be the woman a man fought to build a future with. But it had never been her. It had always been Savannah. As the years passed, Savannah and Caleb built a life together. Their apartment grew from cramped to spacious, their furniture from thrifted to bespoke, their vacations from bus rides to flights across oceans. Naomi, meanwhile, moved between mediocre jobs, never quite finding her footing. She envied her sister's polished life in Mariela Heights. The way Savannah glided into luxury restaurants in silk dresses, while Naomi counted coins to cover her rent. And envy, like water left stagnant, began to rot. Naomi told herself it wasn't hatred, it was fairness. Why should Savannah have everything? The perfect husband, the glamorous life, the respect of the city? Naomi's reflection in the mirror always seemed to echo those questions back at her. Then Caleb began noticing her. It started innocently enough. He would greet her warmly at family dinners, asking about her job or complimenting her outfit. Naomi clung to every word, replaying them in her head at night like a forbidden melody. She convinced herself his gaze lingered longer than it should. And one evening, after a heated family argument where Naomi felt belittled once again,